The heartbeat of the beloved disciple. By walking close to the beloved Son, Jesus Christ, during his own journey of life, we begin to realize that, in this man, we are all enveloped and embraced. He takes all of us into himself through the power of the Spirit, and he takes us so completely that he bears us even through the cross into the radiant light and joy of the resurrection. And he does this so that he can free us from all that hinders us from receiving this gift of our Father's love, and from returning into the Father's embrace. Uniting himself to us in our own pain, our own darkness, our own fear, Jesus holds us close to his merciful heart, healing and transforming us by his gentle touch. And in this way, pressed close to his bosom, he carries us into the bosom of the Father, where we can feel and hear with him those beautiful and life-giving words, "You are my beloved child, in whom my soul delights." The Gospel of John is in a special way the gospel of love and intimacy. It is the gospel of belovedness, in which we are granted a particularly vivid insight into the immense love that God the Father has for his beloved Son, and without any diminution for each one of us. The Son himself tells us at the Last Supper, "As the Father has loved me, so have I loved you," which, if translated more accurately, would read, "With the very love with which the Father has loved me, so have I loved you," meaning, with the Father's love, given first to me, I have loved you. And he also soon adds, "The Father himself loves you." During this supper, one of the disciples, the one whom Jesus loved, leans against the breast of Christ, reposing against his very bosom. This is a beautifully intimate moment, for at this meal Jesus opens his heart vulnerably before those who are closest to him, before his apostles. He speaks to them of the Father's love, of the mystery of the Holy Trinity, and of the deepest desires of his own sacred heart. In their presence he addresses his heavenly Father in prayer, thereby drawing them into the ineffable bond of love and intimacy between the Father and the Son, with the breath of the Spirit ever passing between them in their ceaseless dialogue. Here, in this intimate prayer, they hear the words that unveil Christ's deepest desire for those who believe in his name, who welcome the gift of love from God, those words already quoted above. And this prayer culminates in Jesus expressing to his Father his yearning that we, his friends, may truly be drawn into the very heart of the Trinity's life, as he says, "Father, I desire that they also, whom you have given me, may be with me where I am, to behold my glory, which you have given me in your love for me before the foundation of the world." Yes, the only begotten Son of God has come into the world to unveil before us the heart of our loving God, and to take us into himself, as children within the Son, so that we may share in the innermost life of the Trinity, a life of perfect intimacy and eternal joy. It is precisely in this precious moment that the disciple whom Jesus loved is present, resting against the heart of Christ, as he speaks of all these things, as he shares himself, not only in words and affection, but in the Holy Eucharist, his very body and blood given to those whom he loves. This disciple, whom tradition has come to call the beloved disciple, rests against the bosom of the incarnate Son, just as the Son eternally rests in the bosom of the Father. He listens to the heartbeat of Jesus, to this heartbeat ever surging with infinite love and tenderness, ever flowing with profound compassion and concern for each human being. The beloved disciple listens to this heartbeat, and he feels the joy of the Son himself in being loved by his Father, the ineffable security that the Son has in the embrace of his Father, a joy and security which enable him to lay down his life for the salvation of all, to lay down his life in order to take it up again, and to bear those whom he has redeemed from the estrangement of sin and into the depths of his own intimacy with the Father. Yes, the beloved disciple glimpses all of this. He experiences the enveloping love of God spreading out from the heart of Jesus and embracing him. And in this mysterious embrace, the beloved disciple's eyes and heart are open to recognize that the whole world indeed is, and has always been, cradled in the arms of divine love. The light of love enfolds the world and irradiates it with its presence. But sadly, human hearts have turned away from this light and prefer the darkness to the light, because their deeds are evil. The choice of sin is a choice to divorce oneself from the cradling arms of love, and it brings into creation much evil and suffering, and the painful experience of loneliness and isolation. Turned away from love as we are, closed in upon ourselves in fear and sin, love had to come to us, to enter into our resistance to God's touch, and our closedness to the gift of loving relationship. And he did come. Love drew near to us and was made flesh, in order to be with us in our brokenness, and by his touch to restore us to the relationship that we had lost. By his intimate presence with us, penetrating into our closed and walled-up hearts, he yearns to touch us, to heal us, and to gradually reopen us from within, so that we may abide in an intimate and living communion with love once again. This is what the beloved disciple felt. This is the love that touched him and enfolded him from within the heart of Jesus. And because this disciple allowed himself to be touched, cradled, and held in this way, he alone, of all the apostles, was able to remain close to Jesus even through his passion and death. He, with Mary, the mother of Jesus, stood at the foot of the cross in faithful love, receiving and reciprocating the gift of Christ. Finally, the beloved disciple was also the first to recognize and to believe in the Lord's resurrection, even before the risen one had himself appeared to his apostles in visible form. Love gave him a receptive heart, which was made soft by the gentle touch of God. And this receptivity, born of a filial trust, opened his eyes to see with a profound vision of faith and love. And then he spent the rest of his life trying to help others to see, trying to communicate to them the same vision of faith, the same deep intuition of love, which had healed and transformed his own life. But why is all of this important for us as we begin these reflections on the Gospel of John? Who is this beloved disciple? His name is never given to us, for he hides himself in the shelter of Christ's loving presence, simply referring to himself as beloved. Yet he refers to himself in this way for two reasons, both in gratitude and reverence for the unique love that he has received from Jesus, but also because he is inviting us to recognize that we are also, each one of us, the beloved disciple of Jesus. Despite his veiling of his own name, nonetheless, there is an indication of who he is at the high point of the gospel. After Jesus entrusts his mother into the care of the beloved disciple, he releases his life into the hands of the Father, and then a soldier pierces his side with a lance, causing blood and water to flow out. The writer of the gospel then interprets the narrative and says, "He who saw this has borne witness. His testimony is true, and he knows that he tells the truth, that you also may believe." Who could this eyewitness have been if all the other apostles had fled, and the beloved disciple alone stood at the foot of the cross? In these words, we see that this disciple whom Jesus loved is also the author of the gospel. But do we know the name of the author of the gospel? Are we able to identify the man who concealed himself in the shelter of the love of Christ? The tradition of the Church has always understood, from the earliest days, that he is none other than the Apostle John. There is no reason to doubt this testimony, which was almost universally acknowledged from the earliest days of the Church, by those who would have known John himself. Therefore, in all that follows, it will be taken for granted that John is the beloved disciple, the disciple who leaned against the breast of Jesus at the Last Supper and stood with Mary at the foot of the cross. This is why this gospel is called the Gospel according to John, for it comes from his own testimony, from the witness of his own heart, his own life, his own words. Yes, in the words of this gospel, we can hear the heartbeat of the beloved disciple himself. We can hear him inviting us to enter into the depths of his own spiritual contemplation, his own encounter with the ineffable beauty of the crucified and risen Son, and of the Father and the Spirit to whom he is eternally united. In a word, through the heartbeat of the beloved disciple, we are invited to hear, to feel, and to surrender to the heartbeat of the beloved Son himself, who, for his part, always rests in the bosom of the Father, united to the eternal heartbeat of love that throbs in his most tender paternal breast.